Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sights on Sinnoh, episode 44. We are covering episodes 20 and 21 of Battle Dimension this week, and I am joined by JM. How are you today?
Doing pretty well, Will. I've been doing a lot of chain fishing in auras recently, so that's been my current Pokemon hobby.
Ooh, for Feebas?
For everything.
Oh, okay.
I've gotten everything in auras, and I've moved to X.
I believe it's overfishing, JM.
What was that?
I believe that's called overfishing. I think you.
I know. I've completely ruined the aquatic ecosystems of Hoenn and Kalos.
You know, it was going to be you or global warming, whichever came first.
Yeah.
But this week we're talking about a few different ecosystems, but referencing some that we've seen in the past as we jump into this first episode, featuring an interesting development for our characters called Pika and Goliath. I don't think this is a bad title, actually. I think it works.
Yeah, it's a good title. It kind of like you can get a glimpse of what we're gonna see just from that title.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's cool.
Right, there's some relevance there, which is more than I can say for a lot of the titles in this season. But anyway, this starts off with our heroes just kind of eating in the middle of their travels. Some of the food like rolls down the hill, and Pikachu and Piplup are clearly starving, so they go down and try and pick up that piece of food, where they run into a Pichu who is accompanied by a trainer, and this trainer is named Sho.
I mean, he has a longer title, but I don't think anyone remembers it.
It's a mouthful for sure. But Sho is an interesting character that, like, I feel at some point in your life as a trainer, you want to do this, which is collect an evolutionary line of Pokemon.
I mean, like, use it on your team? I never had that. I mean, I collect for, like, living dex purposes, sure.
Not even, like, an evolution team?
No, I've never run an evolution team. Although I think that would be a fun gimmick to try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just in general, I always like... If I really like 2 or 3 Pokemon part of the same evolution line, I try to, like, just for fun, have them on my team. Or even in Pokemon Camp, like, get to see all the different stages work together. But this, fair. But this is very explicitly him using it more for battle, at least as far as we can tell, since only one of his Pokemon battles. But it's revealed here that he has a Raichu as well, along with his Pichu, and tries to just go in on what he believes is a wild Pikachu, and we get an Iron Tail face-off between Ash's Pikachu and his Raichu. And from there on, he's like, oh, that's yours? Let's trade. Like, he wants that evolutionary set, which he explains what it is one Pokemon at each stage in that Pokemon's evolutionary line. So in this case, it's Pichu, Pikachu, and Raichu.
Yeah, and he's like really desperate for this. Like, he not only wants to trade like one Pokemon, like he's gonna give Ash like the Magnemite line.
Yeah, I'm like, at least for Magnezone, like, gosh. Also,
he's like willing to go multiple though for one, which is wild.
And what's funny is, like, you're closer to getting a full evolutionary line if you don't trade away those Magnemite and Magneton.
Right.
Because now you just need one more after that. But of course, Ash is like, no, multiple times, just telling him to stop it until he challenges him to a battle. And then saying, like, and if you lose, like, he keeps trying to put these terms on Ash that are like, if you lose, I get Pikachu, and he's like,
no one does that.
Yeah, so good on Ash for not just falling for this dumb trick.
Between like his desperation and like his constant use of like late 90s, early 2000s terminology. I just can't stand this guy.
Yeah, he sucks. And I
He's
think
not
that
great.
the show very clearly wants you to hate him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you did the job. Even later on, I feel like there's some toxic masculinity. So I'm like, okay, yeah, your grave is dug, buddy. Jump in. Uh,
Yeah.
so this is when we cut to the battlefield, and this all moves very quickly, which I think
Yeah.
is good for the most part. Like so many others, I feel like would have Dawn pull out her Pokédex like twice.
Exactly. I think the focus, like, it's very much an Ash and Pikachu episode, which we haven't had too much of recently because he's been focused on Chimchar, slightly on Turtwig, but mostly Chimchar. And then also got a Gligar, so that's, a whole story in itself. And,
Yeah,
traded for Buizel. Like, a lot has happened on Ash's team this season. So I think going back to the roots of Ash and Pikachu is pretty good here.
Yes.
And getting some callbacks that we'll see here in a little bit.
Definitely. And you know what's another interesting point in terms of Pikachu's screen time here?
What?
Ash's Pikachu and Dawn's Ambipom have been in the exact same amount of gym battles this region.
2 each?
Yeah.
Oh, are you counting Dawn's gym battle? Does that count?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I found that really funny that where people are always saying like, oh, Pikachu should be extremely overleveled. But if you think about it, there's a ton of instances like this where Ash wants to show off the new Pokemon, or the writers do because they're promoting the games, of course. I was like, oh, that's funny. Like, Pikachu has not competed in the last 2 gym battles, and his Apom has actually his Apom's now been in more technically because it was in the first, second, and now third gym, only under Dawn for the third one.
Dang! Wow.
Yeah, so I think this was so that's why I found this really refreshing as well, I'd say. As the battle starts, Dawn's like, just make sure you don't lose, because she's like us. They're like, hey, this guy sucks.
Yeah, Dawn has a lot of odd lines. Like, thanks, Dawn, really helpful. And before this, she's like incredibly shocked that this guy wants a full evolutionary set. Like, she's like, I've never met anyone who's wanted to do that. I'm like, surely there's got to be at least one person who's you've seen before who specializes in something like this.
Have we though? Like, think about it. Who this season even comes close to that though?
Probably any of the gym leaders, I would think, just because they're monotype.
Yeah, I would.
Even then,
Sinnoh surprisingly does a good job of trying to not do like duplicates or same evolutionary line.
Oh, you mean we don't have Lance with 3 Dragonites?
Or Blaine with Ponyta and Rapidash, another Ponyta. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's surprisingly good. I saw a video recently actually about this, and surprising no one, Johto has the worst because for reasons. Yeah, because Johto. But Sinnoh surprisingly does a good job. Later on in Diamond and Pearl, there is a trainer who has an Ambipom for like no reason. But at least early, they're pretty diverse in their teams, which is nice. So yeah, that might be why she's a bit surprised. Like, as far as she understands battling, like, evolve everything, like, get it going. Like, if you can make it more powerful, why not?
Exactly.
So he's a true collectionist here. And in some ways, I think might even be a symbol for some trainers who just play the games and want to do something like this.
Yeah, I mean, you get some of these, like, character of the week characters who, have these gimmicks, and it's like, yeah, you can try this too. I don't know how successful you'll be, but go for it, I guess.
Yeah, like, it's an option. You can. And the battle starts off with Pikachu's Thunderbolt, and Raichu just completely absorbs it to fire off its own thunder at Pikachu, which Pikachu does in also is like braces itself and is like,
yeah. To which Show says, let's bum rush them, and I'm like, Show, just stop. Just don't talk this episode, and it'll be like perfect.
He, I mean, I kind of was like, the more he talks, the more he irritates me, and I think that motivates my my like,
Right. It's just like, man, at least give him like
yeah,
decent dialogue.
sure, like cut it down a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
And he's like, let's get the show on the road. Let's get the show on the road. Show him a real Volt Tackle, and now it's a battle of Volt Tackles in the air. And yeah, one of Don's splendid lines this episode. What a collision of Volt Tackles!
Oh my god, the writing just incredible.
And both Pikachu and Raichu fly off. But Brock's like, oh, looks like they're even, but shows like, get real. Raichu's got the size. And just, more of that dialogue. Splendid if you want to go and watch it. But Raichu confidently lands on the ground while Pikachu blasts through a rock that's behind him.
A lot of rocks breaking this episode.
Yeah. The Association of Peace for Rocks is gonna come on in here and violate. It's like cite that violations to everyone. Ash goes in with Iron Tail, and Raichu also mirrors this move with its very long tail, which we've actually seen. Oh, you know what's funny? I was like, why didn't Dawn use her Pokédex here? And because we saw Raichu back, I think before he turned a forest, actually.
Did we?
Yeah, it was this old lady's Pikachu that went off to evolve.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
And I'm glad we have this episode because that was a terrible one. And Raichu needs some redemption.
Yeah, and yeah, we don't get any Pokedex entry this episode.
Yeah, I thought she might do Pichu, actually.
Yeah, you would think. I think just to keep the pacing, because this one is quick.
It is very quick. So I think it's okay if they leave it out. And I'm pretty sure we see Pichu later on, so not a total loss here. But Ash is like, all right, I get Raichu might be physically stronger, but we have speed on our side. So Pikachu used Quick Attack. And as Pikachu goes in for this with a kind of cool 3D background, might I add, it's quickly defeated by Raichu's girth, just like stopping it in its tracks. And then Sho has Raichu charge up a Hyper Beam, which Pikachu tries to dodge, but is pinned down by Raichu's tail.
Yeah, this is brutal. This is like insanely, like this is a dark strategy.
Yeah. It's like incapacitate and terminate, basically.
Yeah, like a point blank hyper beam while pinned down against a rock. Like this is cruel and it's like scary. It's
like a Paul tactic, honestly.
It is, and it's funny that you say that.
It is. As Pikachu tries to get up from this, he like looks up at Raichu and is just completely defeated while Raichu growls down at Pikachu. And as Ash runs over to like pick up Pikachu from the ground, it's defeated. Sho just keeps roasting him, and I'm like, I really want to see this guy get what's coming to him, because he's like, I had a harder time getting out of bed. If that Pikachu were mine, that would be a whole different game.
I don't get him at this point because he like then asks for the trade.
Yes.
And then when Ash says no, he's like he makes some comment about like, oh, I don't even want that Pikachu anyways, basically. And it's like, well then like his whole motivation is he thinks it's a strong Pikachu, and then he battles it and then wins because obviously he has a Raichu with the exact same move pool minus Hyper Beam. Like it has the upper hand. Like obviously you're gonna win this. And then he's like disappointed that the Pikachu lost. But also like that was his condition for getting the Pikachu.
Right. I feel like he is trying a tactic where it's like, you suck like at raising him, but like if it were with me, it would win. But it doesn't really come across that way. It's also not good. So
yeah,
that's the most I can gather from Sho's tactics here. But yeah, he's increasingly brutal about this, especially as Ash continues to refuse to trade.
And
Ash
he
even
just
says
leaves.
yes, and Ash even says "creep" behind him.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Right, like he pissed off Ash, which is like, oh,
Yeah, he's
only
upset.
one other person I know does that. And speak of the devil.
Yeah, I wonder who could be watching from the trees, also a creep.
Yeah, well, behind a rock, to be logistically fair, but yes. um, at some point, Show said pathetic, and I'm like, oh, I know who's in this episode.
Yeah.
It's almost like his ears were tingling, and we see Paul come around the corner, just
And
saying
call
like that
Ash
was,
pathetic.
yeah, and says, and Ash is like, did you see what happened? And he's like, yeah, and it wasn't pretty. Um,
Sadly, this is like the most
mhm.
helpful we've seen Paul
Yeah.
in a long time. Is
Mhm.
like, sure, he like rags on Ash here and like calls him pathetic, but it's also like you can tell he doesn't want Ash to be in this position.
Yes, he wants, I think, especially Pikachu to live up to his expectations.
Yeah, and I think part of it is just Paul's wanting of a worthy rival.
Mm-hmm. So you think he still sees that in Ash?
I think he sees that in Pikachu.
Okay,
I don't know
yeah.
if he sees that in Ash.
Totally fair.
But going back to the previous episode we talked about where Ash meets Reggie, was his name?
Yes, yeah, his brother.
Like it's clear that Paul has talked about this Pikachu specifically.
Yes.
And he has an interest in this Pikachu.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not he's just putting on a facade when he calls Ash pathetic, which I'm not sure of at this point, he probably does look down on Ash to some degree. Right. He's impressed by this Pikachu.
Definitely, yeah. Ever since we saw that Volt Tackle in like the second or third episode, we see that Paul has an interest in it, which is, I think, is a really cool relationship there. That's not super explicit, but it's there for sure.
And I think it goes a little further here when he says, like, I think Pikachu needs to evolve, and then you two will be even, more or less.
Yeah. Like,
it seems like Paul, like, knows that Ash could win this battle if Pikachu was a Raichu, but he doesn't want to straight out admit it. Like, he doesn't want to give Ash that much credit.
Exactly. Yeah. He's like, I'll acknowledge it, but you're not going to get those words out of my mouth. Yeah. And Brock does say, like, well, he has a point that that Pikachu can't learn Hyper Beam without evolving. And I think, I don't know if Brock's trying to like soften the blow from Paul here, but that doesn't seem to be the biggest issue in this case.
Right. I mean, I think they draw attention to that because it's the only difference in their moveset.
Yes, well, exactly.
There's Thunderbolt versus Thunder, I guess, but
but yeah,
practically the same.
Exactly. In terms of effect and usage, they're pretty similar. Like in earlier episodes when Pikachu did know Thunder, it was like just shown as a more powerful Thunderbolt to any extent.
I mean, even here they use the same animations later on in the episode.
Yes. Exactly. And this is where we brush over to the Pokemon Center as Pikachu blacks out. And Nurse Joy's like, you have to leave me with Pikachu here. And they go into the emergency room where they are trying to resuscitate Pikachu, basically. Over time, like, Nurse Joy pulls out the defibrillators and has Chansey continue to tell it to, like, raise the voltage. And it's very intense. Like, Ash starts crying, and it seems like his voice is what causes Pikachu to wake up.
So this scene bothered me. I'm just going to be completely honest. I feel like the stakes for this specific scene were way too high in that.
Yeah.
That, like, Pikachu almost died here.
Right.
And Pikachu has been through way worse than a Raichu. Heck, he's beaten a Raichu before. Yeah. Or he's battled and lost to a Raichu, which gets covered in just a second.
Right.
And then he's beaten that same Raichu. Like, we've had this story before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been like this specific issue has been overcome in the past. And for it to be a character of the week, like random guy they met in the woods that almost kills Pikachu is just absurd to me. And I think it's my biggest complaint to the episode is that this guy doesn't have any other relevance.
Yeah.
And for him to raise the stakes that much in the first half of an episode is just wild to me.
So would it be more acceptable then if it wasn't shown that Pikachu's health was in such grave danger?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that.
I think, and part of it is that like point blank hyper beam, like logically that tracks that would be something that could kill a Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the strongest moves in the series. It's like applied point blank from like a significantly larger version of the target Pokemon. Like that tracks, but it still doesn't feel right in the context of what we've seen Pikachu go through in the past.
Yeah, and as we kind of do a sequence that's loosely Ash's relationship with Pikachu flashing before his eyes, we see a ton of their past opponents, including okay, this is actually really worthy of talking about. So,
these flashbacks, I didn't catch all of them.
Yeah, let me walk through them. So, the first one is Ash and Pikachu meeting in the first episode. Him getting shocked by Pikachu there. Later on, how Ash is protecting Pikachu from the Spearow. And then we see one of the Ash's gym battles against a Gyarados. So I think this might have been Claire and Johto.
Oh.
And then one where he is where he's earning the symbol from one of the Battle Frontier heads.
Interesting choices.
And it's Brandon.
Which is
the Battle Pyramid head. Okay. And the one symbol missing from Reggie.
From Reggie.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was
see
like,
where this is going.
Yeah. I didn't even think about it until now. I was like, why did they show this? Okay. And then
I do like the callbacks. I think the callbacks are fitting. I think especially this one, that one's awesome. So, like, I do like that, and I like how we get the discussion here in a sec about the previous Raichu battle that we've seen.
Right. Yeah. This whole thing could work a lot better if they didn't show Pikachu on the verge of death, basically.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's my biggest complaint with this episode.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like just the whole just the amount of weight this has is a little too much. And
I don't know. I feel like those sort of stakes would have worked for me if, say, this was like the battle against Volkner later on. If, like, I don't remember Volkner's team, and I'm sure we'll get to it eventually, but if Volkner had a Raichu and did this exact thing to Ash, I would have accepted it. I would have been like, yeah. That's fine. But the fact that this is some random that they just met in the forest that you're already like starting to hate, it's like why? Who gave this character the right to do that?
Yeah, because the last time we saw this, it was also a gym leader. Yeah,
and it's like why is this the thing that almost brings like the main Pokemon from this, 4 regions long series to his demise?
Right.
Halfway through the middle season of like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And like, to me, I think it bothered me more when I first saw this episode. This is probably the 4th time I've seen this episode, and each time I have a different take on it, which I find, which I'm like, I thought I keep flip flopping between like either not liking it or really liking it. But you'll see
That's
more of my
fair.
take as we go on. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that. And after Pikachu is resuscitated, we cut to the like end of the day basically, and he's resting in his bed. Which I was like, you don't have a Pokemon-sized bed for him,
It's like a massive human bed in a
right?
massive human hospital room.
Yeah, like there's a curtain and everything. I'm like,
It's
what?
very dramatic, just
Yes.
like the rest of the scene. Like it's so dramatic.
Yeah, Pikachu tries to like jump out the window, but he's actually like, "No, chill. You need a rest, buddy." But he gets the message that he wants to battle Raichu again, and everyone here is talking to Pikachu, saying like, "Hey, we know you're frustrated, but like you gotta rest first. Yeah, you're in the condition you're in. Like you can't just do that. You're gonna hurt yourself, basically." And I really like this. Actually, it makes Pikachu feel like a very conscious character, almost like in some ways he's been like built up to be, but at the same time they have that line between like human and Pokemon.
I'd like it more if we didn't just have this setup with Chimchar at the end of the last season.
Oh, what do you mean?
Like badly injured. Like I guess it's like
Oh,
slightly different in that Paul was forcing Chimchar to battle, and this is like Ash, like it's mirrored. Like Ash is trying to get Pikachu to not battle, but like
interesting.
on the verge of death both times. Like dramatic surgery scene, like relevant flashback scene. Being told that the Pokemon shouldn't battling anyways. Like it's a very similar setup.
Okay, I didn't even really think about that. It's interesting. Maybe I would if Chimchar had come at all. Like we even saw Paul, and I didn't even think about Chimchar. Um,
Yeah, I don't know.
But we do get, as you were talking about some flashbacks, Ash explains to Dawn why he has this Thunderstone that he pulls out. And he says that he got it back in Vermilion City, and we see like the thankfully like redone art for that scene in like modern style. And we see
Yeah.
Brock in like in his old outfit, which I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think one thing that could have made this slightly better is if like when Brock made the comment about like maybe you could evolve Pikachu, like he could have hinted at the Thunderstone. He didn't like have to outright say it, but it's clear Brock should have remembered that Ash had it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Because he
I
was
mean,
there and he's shown there.
right, like at some points, one of them might have like said to the other, like, "Do you think?" or something.
Yeah, exactly. Just
Mhm.
something as simple as that would have been so nice.
Yeah, so it did feel a little less natural how he had to pull it out and then explain everything. And before Pikachu can give its 2 cents, it again like blacks out, goes to sleep. So Ash leaves the Thunderstone on the bedside table, and we get a cool little moment with Team Rocket, which I thought was fun.
Yeah, they like really don't want Pikachu to evolve.
Yes, Meowth is specifically against this on an ethical, moral uh standing, basically, because he's like, no.
Right.
If I don't evolve, Pikachu doesn't evolve, and that's it. um,
Exactly.
which I
Is
was like,
this
mhm.
is this past the point? Like, do we, as the audience, as someone who has been watching, say everything up until this point, has it been revealed Meowth's thing, or is that told later?
His history of like why he can't.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was like, I don't know. Wait, what episode are we on? 540 of like total anime. Yeah, that was revealed like 400 episodes ago.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Just making sure, because
Oh, because you're like, oh, is that gonna come up later?
yeah,
It's surprisingly, I mean, it's
I
a
mean
lot of
it doesn't
recap.
come up. Yeah.
Uh-huh. He kind of simplifies it here as well. But basically, he's like, no, I want to be the one on the boss's lap as a Meowth, not as a Persian, but he's
Definitely.
not getting there, sadly.
Nope.
But at least in their case, they're like, we can keep Pikachu as it is, and we know that it would. They even say we know it would be really powerful as a Raichu, but it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So appreciate that little insight from Team Rocket there as well. We
Which
then.
is.
Mhm.
Oh wait, never mind. They don't. I was trying to think. They don't. But wait. Didn't
What's
they
up?
try to force? No, they didn't try to force Pikachu to evolve.
Oh, okay.
In the Bee Button League episode?
Yep,
Did they?
they did.
Team Rocket, what the heck?
We get a really weird contradiction here because back in Jubilife, they tried to evolve Pikachu using their dumb thing machine, like
Evolution machine.
that they got from the Magikarp salesman. And this is a part of the trivia, so yeah, it's really weird. This is why that episode just shouldn't exist. The Bee Button League, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
I'm
not
trying
the
to
greatest.
think if they've tried to force Pikachu to evolve later on. I don't think they have.
Yeah, I think they have been pretty set on just Pikachu being Pikachu.
I know there are a couple more evolution scares, one in Sun and Moon and
Yes.
one in Journeys,
Right.
where they like tease that possibility, but I don't think Team Rocket does either of them.
No, yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's just kind of like nature is just like the main thing there. But here it's hinted that it might be Pikachu as Ash, Dawn, and Brock come into the room later at night to see Pikachu missing, a window open, and the Thunderstone gone.
Yeah, and you can tell Ash is kind of hurt here.
Yeah.
Like he's like, yeah, if Pikachu wanted to evolve, that's fine with me, but you can like hear the pain.
Yeah.
In his voice. Like he wasn't sure about this decision. I don't know why he left the Thunderstone right there.
Yeah. But the lighting on Ash's face during this realization is amazing.
Yes, yeah.
It's just so great. Like as he's like in shock, it's like processing it very clearly, and then that's when we have Dawn say like, Ash, I'm thinking there's only one reason Pikachu would take the stone, and that's where we get that moment of acceptance that you just said. I'm like, oh wow, that kind of hurt.
Yeah. This could be like a very big change.
Mm-hmm.
Like it really could shift the entire show.
Right.
For the rest of its tenure if this change ever happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also why this episode bothers me so much because again, such a huge change could be attributed to just a character of the week episode had they just decided to write it slightly differently.
Right. It's just so close in lots of things. Like, even here, as Ash is searching for Pikachu, we get more really pretty flashbacks of him and Pikachu going through a snowstorm, and Kanto climbing up a mountain in Hoenn. So we see moments from his history, like, very clearly.
Right.
Showing him in different outfits. And as Ash stumbles upon Pikachu's location, he finds him practicing Volt Tackle on a bunch of boulders and actually not taking that much damage from him, apparently.
Yes, but we also see this animation of a Thunderbolt striking. Not a Volt Tackle.
Right before this?
Right when they like figure out where he is.
Oh, yeah, that's what
is a Thunderbolt from the sky, which is that animation that I say is reused because we're going to see it here in a sec with Thunder.
Exactly, yeah. But before that, it's revealed that Team Rocket is there as well. And it's great.
We're actually a relevant plot device rather than
like
the antagonist of this episode.
Yeah, it's really nice when they do this. He's like, yeah, you guys keep trading. We're just going to take this Thunderstone. Okay, bye.
They just leave.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, sure. Like, Ash is confused, but I'm like, oh, that's really cute, actually. And it makes sense. Like, yeah, they would probably want to rob something like that as well. And we know exactly what they're going to use it for, but they say explicitly what it's for later, which is nice.
Exactly.
And Ash is like, yeah, let's go back and rest, and we'll train tomorrow. So we get to the next day where Ash is walking out of the Pokemon Center with a rested Pikachu, and even Brock says like, "Oh, Pikachu's healed fast." Again, putting into question like, did you really need to make it so like drastic that he was injured if you're gonna turn it around like this?
Like he almost died last night.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's like 100% ready to go. Like,
yeah, like that's just that one detail that definitely weirdly skews the episode. Because they try to brush past it very soon afterwards. And here, as they're kind of hyping themselves up, we see Pikachu like talking to Ash, and then distracted by Paul, who's checking out the Pokemon Center, and they quickly like do a little like staring competition before Paul just closes his eyes and like walks past them.
And this rivals the Maze episode in terms of Paul appearances. Just spectacular, incredible performance, Paul. 10 out of 10.
He had more to do here than in the Maze episode, and he talked to only Ash.
That's fair.
So I'll give him credit there, but yeah, it's definitely like, oh yeah, Paul's here too.
He's a thing. He was in this episode.
Exactly.
Fun.
And we get I think my favorite training, which is with frisbees. Ash,
like what?
Ash throwing them, and Pikachu jumping up in the air to catch it with its tail and continue to spin with it. Which I'm like, oh, that's actually not the worst way to train like a creature.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It's just like so different from what we're used to in terms of Pikachu's training.
Well, is it? We have seen a lot of spin meta.
We have, and it gets discussed here in a bit.
Yeah.
And in the next episode, which is... I like how they acknowledge this. But I don't know. I mean, usually like Ash's training involves like training those specific attacks.
Yeah.
And this is a little outside of that.
That's true. But I will bring up, do you remember how he won against Lieutenant Surge?
No.
He was like, Pikachu was having trouble absorbing the attacks. And what he did was train Pikachu to use its tail as a lightning rod and stick it in the ground as a way to like divert the electricity away from its body into the ground.
Yeah.
I think this is better than that, honestly.
I agree. I do think this episode kind of looms in the shadow of the Lieutenant Surge episode, though. I guess we can get to that when we get to the end, but
exactly.
I don't know. It tries so hard to be that episode.
I'll share my thoughts on that, but as they're in the middle of their training, they see that Thunderbolt animation, which they say is Raichu's thunder. So like, I guess Ash just really knows the difference between those two.
You see, Thunder has 3 bolts coming out of it, while Thunderbolt has 4.
Oh, of course, of course. The electricity scattering effect.
Only the most observant Pokemon trainers like Ash Ketchum are able to notice things like that.
I mean, hey, he's had this Pikachu know both these moves before, so maybe he just knows. Yeah. He challenges Sho to a battle. He brings out Pichu to watch. It's like, oh, cute. Love little Pichu. And he's like, as they're starting the battle, Pikachu like taunts Raichu, and Ash is like, oh, Pikachu says you get the first move, and Sho says, why you little?
Oh, I love this moment because of why Sho gave Pikachu the first move in the first battle.
Exactly.
Which is, he says like losers go first or something along those lines, and it's like, oh, Pikachu, feisty today.
It's like a burn in the south. Like, oh, he did it
He's
without
like,
like
Like, bless your heart.
Right, exactly. Pikachu just blessed your heart, this traitor.
Incredible.
Raichu goes in for Iron Tail, and Pikachu starts doing some spins to dodge, and shows like, hey, this might be fun. So immediately he's like, oh, this is different vibe than last time we battled. And honestly, I really like this battle. And
Yeah, it's a good battle.
yeah, I don't want to do it too much of a disservice by breaking it down too much, so I highly recommend watching it. But the basic gist is we see a lot of Pikachu's agility really take the stage in the way that like you assumed it might in the first time, like in the first battle that we saw between these two. But also with some tricks up its sleeve that I really enjoy, which just kept me on edge every time like something new happened.
Yeah, a lot of great battle choreography, a lot of unique uses of moves and applications.
Yes. We get like a very strategic Ash. Like you can feel that he's planning something.
So this is the Ash that I like the most, and this is the Ash that is all of Kalos, basically. And that's why I like Kalos so much, is because he is this creative and he comes up with these solutions and he reads his opponents and is observant. And it's Ash at his strongest because his strength isn't as a trainer, it's as a tactician.
Interesting.
And his ability to think on his toes and react to his surroundings and his conditions as they change.
Okay. See,
and that's just the Ash I like the most.
Okay. Yeah, I also really enjoy this version of Ash. I really need to put more time into Kalos because I've only seen a few episodes and they didn't really impress me too much. So I may have to search for the ones that really showcase Ash.
I recommend the one, I think it's the fairy gym leader. I can't remember her name. The one who has like the butterfly costume.
Okay. There is one moment I've heard from a gym battle where he like undoes Trick Room. And I'm
yes, that's it. That's the one.
Really? Okay.
The Trick Room strategy that he uses is actually incredibly good.
Really?
Like it's clever, and it's in a way because Trick Room's a hard thing to convey in the anime because it's not strictly turn-based.
Right.
So there's that one, and then the psychic gym leader where he outsmarts Future Sight in a really clever way as well. That's another good one.
Okay. I've only seen a clip of how he gets around Trick Room, and to me that was like, and that left a weird taste in my mouth, and maybe I just need more context for it, but...
Yeah, I think in context, because he struggles with it at first.
Okay.
And it's his like adaptation to it that makes it good.
I see.
The Future Sight is similar, and then his battle with Clement is also pretty good.
Oh, okay. I have to see that. Yeah, I totally forgot that he would battle Clement eventually, so that's nice. But yeah, like honestly, this is one of the top battles in this season already.
Yeah, it's such a good battle, and I don't know, it's a shame it's in this episode, honestly.
Yeah, it's just a shame of who his opponent is, really.
Yeah.
I would have enjoyed if maybe, like, you're already doing a lot of great stuff with continuity. Like, maybe have Lieutenant Surge show up again or something.
Yeah, or even, like, a first taste of Volkner.
Yeah. That could
something
be cool.
Like that. Like, if you really wanted to go the electric trainer route, there's options.
Yeah, definitely. And in some way, I get why they do it, so it's very clear that you want Ash to defeat this person. Just from like a personal satisfaction side of things. But it is just like frustrating because I think ultimately it would be better to say, I love that battle between Ash and this person versus I love this battle between Ash and this person I hate.
And who we don't even get a proper name.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like that one guy who calls himself like the Incredible Mr. Show or something like that. Like,
Right. So I don't dignify him enough by saying that full title. Also partly because I can't remember it all. But still.
Yeah.
Some of the ways that this battle kind of does a great job of doing things near the end include Pikachu countering Iron Tail by like grabbing onto Raichu's Iron Tail and use its momentum against it by flinging it into a tree, and that's where we see the end of the battle, where we get a moment showing the trainer like not even looking in that direction because it happens so fast that he has to like take a moment to see where his Raichu went.
right.
And on the other side we see, oh well, this isn't in the battle, sorry, it's right after this. As we get Pikachu land on its side of the tree, dodge Raichu's tail as it tries to pin it down again for a Hyper Beam, and we get a great finishing move of Pikachu spinning up in the air using Iron Tail, and then coming down like frickin' Sonic the Hedgehog, delivering the final blow on this petrified Raichu, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's brutal battle. A lot of fun things in it though.
Yes, there's like no shortage of action in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And Pikachu triumphantly like pauses and does the classic Ash thing of holding the two fingers in the air for victory. And like, oh, that's I love this so much.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. And we get one look at Paul, who's apparently been watching the battle, and then walks away dramatically.
Yeah, and then we also get a comment from Dawn about how they've really made that spin move their own.
Yes.
Which we'll hear at the start to open the next episode as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So I love nice setup here and acknowledgement that does get paid off, which is always nice. Team Rocket is like on the side, happy, celebrating, and they're like, well, we don't get Pikachu, but we can sell this Thunderstone, so that's cool.
Yay, money.
We get to eat. And as they are as like again sunset comes around, they're saying goodbye to Show, and I'm like, did you really need this?
Yeah, and he's really nice to them. And what threw me off was actually before this battle is he calls Ash a friend.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's like right when Ash challenges him again, he's like, "Oh, hey, it's my friend." It's like, no, it's not.
I'm curious because now this feels like a pattern in some of these episodes lately that the translation might be just slightly off.
Yeah, probably.
So that could be why the characterization kind of moves the way it does and seems a little weird at points. But yeah, it kind of like turns around his personality a bit here. And we see our heroes walk off into the sunset, quite literally, wrapping up this episode of Battle Dimension. So, Pika and Goliath, with all that said, what would you rate it?
Okay. I'm going to put it at a 5.5.
Really? Okay.
I think it tries a lot of things. Like both battles are great. And the contrast between the two battles are great. What bothers me is everything in between. I think, like we've said it already, but the stakes are just too high in between. And it feels unearned because of who this battle is against.
Sure. Yeah.
I think the premise of it is fine. I got until the first time I watched it, I got until the hospital scene before I was like, oh, this is just the Lieutenant Surge episode. So it didn't hook me right away. I don't dislike it because it does a lot of good things. I just think it fell short in terms of the stakes a little bit of the setup and the main antagonist of the episode just drove me crazy.
Yeah, I can overlook the antagonist a bit, but it kind of comes together for me better because by the end in the second battle, they don't even really acknowledge the stakes of having Pikachu like get traded over or evolve to beat this Raichu, which I think is kind of, well mostly the former, that like this, like it's not about Ash losing Pikachu.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they did that because like that was for me like the weakest point of the episode. Um and the whole like Pikachu being in its deathbed felt more like they felt forced to homage the first time we saw this happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get it. Like we want to show the continuity and contrast, but I kind of really like the in between because it shows that while we've seen Pikachu overcome this before, now it's a bit different. It's not that he just has to like absorb the power of his opponent into the ground. Like now he has to like do a lot more than he did before to overcome something like this because his opponent has also leveled up in a way. But
Yeah.
I
don't know. I don't think there was, for me, there was enough strength to show to the character show that like made me think that he would be like 10 times stronger than Surge.
Mhm.
I think that's what bothered me about it was it's this random character where Ash has overcome this challenge before. And he's done it against an opponent who was stronger than him and was, you know, like physically intimidating and a gym leader, so he had that status. And now he's struggling against a kid who looks to be the same age, acts like half that age, and is somehow stronger and more challenging to Ash than Surge was.
Right. Like it could have used a lot more justification for why this guy is so powerful.
And that's why I said earlier is this could have been a point. Not saying it needed to be, but it could have been a point to introduce Volkner because he has that reputation of being so incredibly strong as an electric type trainer.
See, but then if you do that, you're like, oh, he bit the gym leader already.
Well, maybe you don't make the point of the episode to beat him, or you do the thing where they do a lot, where they make the episode end in a draw. We've done that plenty of times.
I guess that could work, but the strengths, there's definitely pros and cons to show. And I think one of the pros here is the fact that he's such an unlikable character. The clear win on Pikachu's part feels so good here. But
it's satisfying, yeah.
Yeah, I almost wonder if like they could do something to avoid them facing off so quickly in the beginning.
I don't think so because it sets up the conflict.
Like
the whole
maybe
point is that he lost.
What if like maybe the battle was interrupted, but we saw that Pikachu was losing, and Ash is like, and then at that puts Ash in like a very alerted state instead of the whole like Pikachu's now on the deathbed kind of thing as the So
I think that could work.
Right, there's like that could work potentially. I don't know, but
even so, I think what bothers me about it is that this first loss against Sho was almost more influential in Ash using the Thunderstone than the Lieutenant Surge battle was, when Ash was a less experienced, less mature trainer back then. You know, this is 3 regions later, and he's still wrestling with this.
Well, it's still different though, because here it's very much, hey, giving Pikachu like, hey, I know you decided this before, but do you want to reconsider? Versus the first time being like,
Right.
hey, do you just want to win? Like he just kind of is very short sighted compared to now.
Right, but what I'm saying is that
Mhm.
Pikachu has overcome a very similar Raichu battle before.
Mm.
And so the fact that Ash is even like that this is Ash's first um his first solution to the problem is what bothers me about it is that
Mhm.
you know he's overcome so many challenges with Pikachu specifically by training and getting stronger and putting in that effort. Whereas just because Paul suggests it once, now it's time to evolve Pikachu.
Yeah. Okay, I see that.
And maybe it's just that Paul can get inside Ash's head so easily,
Maybe.
but and that's why they added Paul into this episode to be the one to suggest it. But the fact that this is Ash's plan A is what bothered me.
Right.
Because
Like,
we've gone through 3 generations where he's had this Thunderstone in his pocket and it's never addressed.
yeah, it does seem weird that comes up, but he also doesn't say, but we didn't because we found another way,
Yeah,
and we can do
exactly.
that again. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can see that. Maybe I don't know why they didn't want to bring it up too much if they had already brought up so much of that episode in here.
Yeah.
Like the way that scene is kind of glossed over is because Pikachu is going to say something and then he blacks out and then like scene over. But there could have been an opportunity to really discuss his idea behind it.
Right.
Because Pikachu is ultimately the one here who decides like, yeah, I can overcome this without evolving.
Right.
But yeah, I really think this back half of the episode is so strong and just the battle and
Yeah, no,
narrative.
the battles are incredible. Like I
Mhm.
think that's what keeps it above a 5 for me.
Okay.
It's just I have issues with the setup and the stakes.
Yeah.
Those are my biggest things.
Yeah, for me, it definitely is weird when you start to dissect it, but
It's a good episode if you don't think about it too hard, in my opinion.
Mhm.
It's just as soon as you get into the details about it, it doesn't hold up very strongly.
Yeah, there's just some weird things because they bring up details, which is kind of usually what I like, seeing that continuity being acknowledged, but at the same time not fully doing it just enough.
Yeah, they don't get far enough with it.
Yeah, it's like just you're almost there. Just take like 2 more steps.
And it's as simple as adding like 2 more lines.
Yes, exactly. But I still really liked it, and I was surprised because I saw this replayed maybe a few months ago on like Pokemon TV, streaming it
Right.
on Twitch, and I was like, oh, this really, I don't really like this as much. But then this time I really did, and I'm kind of torn, but ultimately I'll give it a 7.5 actually.
Okay.
Yeah. And before we move on to the next episode, I think we're going to take a quick break and come back with another interesting kind of callback slash anachronistic thing for a character. But you'll find out about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. I do.
All right, so we'll be back in just 1 minute, and you'll catch us then.